Okay. So we are indeed using each other. Okay. That's great. Four people per time. That's true. Yeah, you're right. Okay. And is anyone reading any Torah or Haftorah? Yes. Oh my God, that'd be awesome. Oh wow, that'd be great. We got some other bad news. Created a recording. And I found it, and I went to test it last night. Somehow, I don't know why it was place. Zoom recorded. Now, during the presentation, it's fine. The recording itself is limited. I don't know, but I could hear conversation. Video. Yeah, it's all there. I'm gonna email it to you. Yeah. Okay. Right on. Yeah. You'll be able to see. Yeah, too much. It's too much. And when I get to open it, I'll download it onto my camera. Oh, that's fine. I have a bunch of. That's fine. But yeah, I heard get me a bagel. Somebody said get me a bagel. Oh, okay, good. Well, yeah, okay. Oh. Yeah. Right. And then somehow really? Oh, this week I get that one.
Shalom Ram Torah.
We're not connected. Oh, for goodness sake.
Hallelujah, 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 take our shofar, hallelujah, never let me go. Hallelujah, the tofu makot, hallelujah, menini meruka, hallelujah, 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 it's his nation, hallelujah, it's his nation. God Shante Hallelujah, God Shante Hallelujah, Davi, Martina Pieta, Tormai, the fourth Rabbi and Sheikh Show. At the top of page 147, our Shachari service officially begins with formal chanting with the Hayel Tzatzuot, as today is a festival. Hayel Tzatzuot Uzecha, Adonai Tevot Shemecha, HaGibor LaNetzar Ve'adar Ve'adar Amelech Yeshevach Kisera Ve'isa Shotei HaMaron Ve'ador Shemo. ובדברי צדיקים תפארת, ובאפשר חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ועלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. שכן טובת פריצוי מבניה, Vekonom Nimale Roman Fetchmine Semi 7 on me, which is the last that each year of Sangana Platu. The Safar of the Shah, Krangepas, Only Tegira. Adonai, Our service continues as we begin to prepare for our Amida on page 158. From here, however, we're going to jump ahead to page 306 for our festival Amida for this morning. And at this time, so that we don't have to make an interruption between Surah Yisrael and the start of our Amida, I'd like to remind everyone to incorporate and include the special passages for Shavuot, which are all laid out there. It'll be page 306. In the meantime, page 158 is where we lead in, halfway down the page at the carrot. Yamar, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. Bekazak mashmir kovot, mitnasim lemasrafim levatam, v'atot yomeru, You come from my fear, letting up the lane, consider talking about the love, but I think love, let's see, on. The Karovia made a long Kishkon, Tit Kadal, Tit Karash, the Dot Yerushalayim, Little Amador, like something vain, with Terema, with Terra, Carla Boar, Shirei, Yusafa. על ידי תזיק ושיח וספרך ימלוך היום החיים ציון לדור לדור הללויה לדור לדור נגיד גדלך ונצח נצחים קדושת הנפש ושפחך אלינו בגרעיוש להברך כי כמל גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני הקדוש We reconnect together on page 313 for the priestly blessing, followed by a prayer for peace, sleep, shalom, page 313. Eloheinu 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 Baruch Shel Hashem B'Torah Haktuva Moshe Avdecha B'Mavura V'Kerah L'Varav Kohanim Ha'amor Yevarech Lecha Adonai Shmerecha Elecha Yaseh Shalom Shalom Olam Tov V'Bracha Alleluia, Kol Yisrael Lamecha, Kol Yisrael Lamecha, Barchei Uhavinu Kurakecha V'yorpanecha, Kivyorpanecha, Du Adonai Eloheinu, Torah Chaim, V'avat Chesed, V'tzedakah, Bracha, V'rachamim, V'chaim, V'shalom, V'tov, V'hinech, V'barech, V'chayis, V'hercholim, V'chol Shav Yishtomecha, Baruch Adonai, Avarech Eloh Yisrael, V'shalom. Together, as we celebrate Shavuot, we turn to page 316 as the Hallel will be chanted, and we rise.
Hallelujah, 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 Adonai. Hallelujah, 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 Adonai. Yedishem Adonai, Yedorah, Le'atah Adonai, Yisrael, Neshanevaho, Le'orah, Shem Adonai, Rama, Yem Adonai, Avashai, Kivado. Adonai Eloheinu, Ha'akrivi Le'shomes, Ha'machili Le'ros, Ha'shamayim U'ba'aretz, Tikimi Me'afardam, Me'ashkos Yorim Le'yon, U'le'hoshiri V'yamnetivim, Yimnetivei Amo. Moshiri Akerem Rabbis, Ein Rabbanim, Sempus Meitor. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Saints Yisrael, meaning Israel, praise Yaakov, Me'am Moed. Saints Yisrael, meaning Israel, praise Yaakov, Me'am Moed. Hazar, Yehudah, V'Machol. Yisrael, Anshlotzah, Ayam, Rabayamos, Ayarkein, Yisrael, Le'achor, Re'evarim, Ra'u'Be'ein, Yivavos, Yivavos, Malachayam, So on page one, on page 317 is a card of the legal document. So I'm going to invite you to read with me in English. So please join me. Not to us, Adonai, not to us, but to your own name, that you may be known faithful and kind. Why should they say, where is their God? You are in heaven, doing whatever you will. Their idols are made of silver and gold, the work of human hands, with mouths that cannot speak, eyes that cannot see, ears that cannot hear, a nose that cannot smell, hands that cannot touch, feet that cannot walk, throats that utter no sound. They created to show us that faith, all of the faith in Him. People of Israel trust in Adonai. Israel to protect their shield. Husbands of Aaron trust in Adonai. Aaron to protect their shield. All who revere Adonai trust in Adonai, your protector and shield. Page 318. Again, that's what we're going to read the top together in English. I am filled with love for thee, and I heard my pleading voice. Turn your ear to me, and it is thy heart. Though the pangs of death embrace me, and the earth's feet sob me out, but when I am troubled and pain, I call upon the name of Adonai. Please, Adonai, save my life. Adonai is kind and righteous. Our God is compassionate, guarding even the foolhardy. But you brought low, God save me. Even I said to myself, for Adonai has done this for me. You have saved me from death, my eyes from tears, my feet from stumbling. I shall walk in God's presence in the land of the living. I have faith in God and declare it, even as I suffer greatly and call out in my prayer. Everyone must cease. Page 319. Hallelujah, Adonai, Elohim, Shavu, Shavu, Page 320. Oh, Lo amus kiakia, lo amus kiakia, bahasa masaya, masaya, ya sur Yisraelia. Ya Sur Yisraelia, Ve'elamodas Lotanani, Lodesanani, Yisraeli, Sha'arei Tzedek, Shlomo Rabbi Mishmael, Chaim Aleinu Yalko Yisrael, the Inferu.
Amen.
Shalom Shalom Aleinu,
Okay. I was going to say it privately, but I'll just announce it here. Every time we have the pleasure and the luxury of having Dina do a Hallel, it either introduces something new or reminds us of a melody that we may have forgotten. And today was no exception. Yashir Koche, thank you as always. Please be seated. Sukkot is special for many reasons, not the least of which is our opportunity to dig deep and read as a community the story of Ruth. I am told that there are a pair of readers that we have who will be leading us in the scroll today. Is that the case? Yes. Okay. And we'll take a moment after to reflect before we begin our Torah service. There are excerpts from the book of Ruth. I'm not sure if this is what they're going to be using. It sounds like it may not be. Okay, it's from the Sim Shalom, whereas ours is Lev Shalem. Page 333 has excerpts of our own, but it sounds like they may not match up.
Our book has the entire book.
Okay.
It's not excerpts. Right.
333 is not the entire book, though. Okay. Lorraine is going to be our first reader. Excellent. Okay.
In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah came to live in Moab with his wife and 2 sons. His name was Elimelech, and his wife's name was Naomi, and his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. Elimelech died, and their 2 sons married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. After about 10 years, Mahlon and Chilion also died, so that Naomi was bereft of her husband and of her 2 sons. With her 2 daughters-in-laws, she set out on the road back to the land of Judah. Naomi said to them, "Turn back, each of you, to her mother's house. May the Eternal deal kindly with you as you have dealt kindly with the dead and with me." They wept aloud and said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi replied, "Go back, my daughters. Why should you come with me? Have I more sons in my womb that may become your husbands?" They wept again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law farewell, but Ruth clung to her. And Naomi said, "You see that your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Go with your sister-in-law." But Ruth replied, "Entreat me not to leave you, to go back and not follow you. Wherever you go, will I go, and wherever you stay, will I stay. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Wherever you die, will I die, and beside you will I be buried. I vow that only death will separate me from you." When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, the 2 of them walked on until they reached Bethlehem. Naomi had a kinsman, a man of wealth from Elimelech's family. His name was Boaz. Ruth said to Naomi, "Allow me to go into the fields to glean among the ears of grain." And Naomi replied, "Go, my daughter." So Ruth went and came to glean in a field belonging to Boaz. Boaz asked his servant, who was in charge of the reapers, "Whose girl is this?" The servant replied, "She is the Moabite girl who came back with Naomi from Moab. She asked to be allowed to glean behind the reapers." Boaz said to Ruth, "Listen, my daughter, glean in no other fields. Stay close to my girls and follow them. I have forbidden the young men to molest you. Wherever you are thirsty, go and drink. I have been told of all you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and your mother and your native land to come to a people you had not known before. May you be richly rewarded by the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek shelter." She replied, "I am grateful. You have comforted me by speaking kindly to your maidservant."
One day Naomi said to her, "My daughter, I must see you happily settled. There is our kinsman Boaz. You have been close to his girls. He is winnowing barley at the threshing floor tonight. Bathe, dress yourself, and go down to the threshing floor, but do not make yourself known to him until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, go, uncover his feet, and you lie down. He will tell you what to do." She did just as her mother-in-law had told her. Boaz ate and drank and went to lie down beside the heap of grain. She came in quietly, turned back the covering at his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, the man gave a start and bent forward. There was a woman lying at his feet. He asked, "Who are you?" She responded, "I am Ruth, your maidservant. Spread your robe over your maidservant, for you are my redeeming kinsman." Boaz said, "May the Eternal bless you, my daughter. Have no fear. I will do all that you ask, for everyone knows how worthy a woman you are." Boaz declared to the elders and to all the people, "You are witnesses that I am acquiring from Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech, and to Kilion and Machlon. I am also taking Machlon's wife, Ruth, the Moabite, to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead together with his inheritance, so that his name will not perish from among his kindred or from the gate of his native place." Then the elders and all the people said, "We are witnesses. May the Eternal make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who built up the house of Israel. May your house flourish like the house of Peretz, whom Tamar bore to Judah, through the offspring which the Eternal will give you with this young woman." So Boaz married Ruth, and she became his wife. The Eternal caused her to conceive, and she bore Boaz a son. Then the woman said to Naomi, "Praise be the Eternal. This child will renew your life and nourish you in your old age, for he is born of your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons." Naomi took the child and became its nurse, and the women, her neighbors, gave him a name. "A son is born for Naomi," they announced, and they called him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David.
So for those of us,
That was too much for the
I want to thank Lorraine and Judy for reading some excerpts from Ruth. And I'm also kind of thankful because there was a point that I'd like to make about the scroll itself. And that was left on the proverbial cutting floor when we set up this excerpts only section here. I want to make mention here that on 333, we do have a poem about Ruth and Naomi, but the actual full reading of the Megillah is found on page 418 for anyone who wants to look at it. There's one special passage that means a great deal here, coming to us in chapter 4. Now, chapter 4 is what we spoke about on Saturday night for Tikkun Leil Shavuot in terms of names and the importance of names and how names being plotted out might signify a punishment or punitive response to an action here. Boaz's kinsman refuses who has first right of refusal to marry Ruth, refuses. And therefore we contend that that's why his name was blotted out. We don't know his name. In fact, as we mentioned, Ploni Almoni is the word that's used, is the name that's used here in the book of Ruth itself, in chapter 4. It's about verse 3 or 4 here. But there's another piece to this chapter that's of significance here that I want to make mention of as well, and that comes later in the chapter. After the Redeemer, or Ploni Almoni, decides that he's not going to marry Ruth. We condemned him on Tikkun Leil Shavuot, but I want to give him an opportunity for redemption. In fact, the translation that's used to signify and to isolate this person is actually Redeemer. And perhaps we can see that as an opportunity to give some credit, where credit might be due to this family member of Boaz. Perhaps. And I say this morning because it contends with what I put forth on Saturday. Perhaps this Redeemer saw the love that Boaz held for Ruth and said, I will not marry her because I want you to have that opportunity. Either way, whether he's a villain or a hero, we can put that aside and make our own decisions at some other time. I do want to speak briefly, starting on verse 11 here from chapter 4, where it reads, Vayimru kol ha'am asher b'sha'ar, azkenim edim yitain Adonai et ha'isha haba'ah el beitecha. So what's happening here is, after Boaz has approval from his kinsman to marry Ruth, the first thing he does is not run home to Ruth. Instead, he calls forth the entire community to say, hey, everybody, we're going to get married here. What this does here, it relates to today in that we place such a high value on sharing simcha, on sharing life cycle events, on sharing the joys with our entire community. The scroll itself makes specific mention. The response is, after being called to be witnesses to this union, to this marriage, all the people at the gate and the elders answer, we are your witnesses. We will be your witnesses. We will be your community. We will consecrate and make holy this marriage here. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, both of whom built up the house of Israel, prosper. And this just shows that in the Jewish community, it makes the most sense in order to celebrate that we do so as a larger group and as a larger community. So we thank our readers for today, and Ruth is a wonderful read if you have opportunity to do so before the holiday ends or at any time after. We will continue by taking out 2 Torah scrolls today, one reading from Pinchas, one reading from Re'eh in reverse order, and we'll have people to carry the scrolls as well. The Torah service itself can be found on page 160, nope, 322. There, page 322. En kamod malchut malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dor vador Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai yimkol le'avayeh Adonai yotz le'amor yitain Adonai Yevareh Amor Shalom Arahamim Eitiva Page 323. Adonai, 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 Eret HaChaim, V'rat Chesed Yemen, Notzeh Chesed L'Alafim, Notzeh Amon V'Fesha, V'Bala V'Nakeh, Adonai, Adonai, El Raful Echadun, Eret HaChaim, Chesed Yemen, Notzeh Chesed L'Alafim, Notzeh Amon V'Fesha, V'Bala V'Nakeh. Ba'ani tefilati le'Adonai et ratzon Elohim v'rochasecha aneni be'emet yishecha. Ba'ani tefilati le'Adonai et ratzon Elohim v'rochasecha aneni be'emet yishecha. V'ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim v'rochasecha aneni be'emet yishecha. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Eloheinu, Gadol Shemo. May be seated.
Right. Never mind.
Today's reading, not the Maftir, which we also have well prepared and right on hand for ourselves here. Today's reading comes to us on page 1080 in our Chumash. It is a shortened reading of the festival, which typically begins with Haser Ta'aser. Here we begin with Kol HaBechor, the firstborn cattle, and the sacrifice of such. This is a discussion of these sacrifices, and it's always part of our festival, our regalim readings. So for those of us following in our Chumashim, verse 19 on page 1080.
Yazor Pegay Yashila Golos and over the Mar, they Koho, Gorilla, and Kobo, La Torah, Kobe Crow, Mo, Yehudit, Bat Roshel, Hey, Roshel, and Torah, Moisher, Chateau,
Chayim Bochem Hayom. Sometimes, when you doubt yourself, you pay the price. It doesn't help also that a Torah, 5 books long, hundreds of chapters, and 2 readings for today, both separated by mere few columns. So that also adds to our confusion. And that's me making the best excuse I can make. All right, we are ready. Amen. Kol HaBechor asher yivaled חצונך זכר תקיש לאדוני אלוהיך, לא תבוא בכל שורך ולא תגוז בכל צונך, לפני אדוני אלוהיך תאכלנו שנה ושנה במקום אשר יבחר אדוני אתה וביתך וחיה בו. פיסח עובר כל מומרה, לא תזבחן לאדוני אלוהיך. סביבך אייל, רק את עמו לא תאכל, הארץ תשפכנו כמים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torah t'nes v'chayei olam notah b'kafeinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Our reading continues on page 1081, chapter 16, verse 1.
Yeah, what was Chaim Yenoten Yaakov Zeh Halevi.
Baruch Adonai Havarah, Baruch Adonai Baruch Leilon Poed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher b'kavonu b'olim, v'natah lanu es Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Shamor et kol shalim, yasita pesach laDonai Elohecha, ki b'chol shalim v'tzinecha Adonai Elohecha miMitzrayim laila, וזבחת פסח לאדוני אלוהיך צור ובקר במקום אשר יבחר אדוני לשכן שמו שם. לא תאכל עליו חמץ, 7 ימים תאכל עליו מצות לחם עוני, כי בחיפזון יצאת מארץ מצרים למען תזכור את יום כל יום תזכור את יום צאתך מארץ מצרים כל ימי חייך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan lanu Torah l'nes, v'chayei olam notah b'sukeinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Our reading continues on page 1082 with verse 4.
Shalom, Peter Ruben, Bat Chaim V'Yetzel, V'Aliyah Shlishit.
Baruch Adonai Havarah.
Baruch
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leilon Poed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher b'kavonu b'olim, v'natan lanu es Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Lo yera לך שאור וכל גבולך 7 ימים. ולא ילין מן הבשר אשר תזבח הערב הראשון לבוקר, לא תוכל לזבוח את הבשר בחג שעריך אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך, כי במקום אשר יבחר אדוני אלוהיך לשכן שמו שם תזבח את הפסח לערב וקבוע שמש מועד צאתך ממצרים, ובישלת ואכלת במקום אשר יבחר אדוני אלוהיך בו פנית בבוקר והלכת לאוהלך 6 ימים תאכל מצות, וביום השביעי עצרת אדוני אלוהיך לא תעשה מלאכה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam l'tavatoteinu. Baruch atah Adonai notei haTorah.
Amen.
Our reading continues on page 1083, verse 9.
Hanabat, David Sarah, Valia Harvey.
Baruch Adonai Baruch, Baruch Adonai Baruch Elohim Haed, Baruch Adonai Baruch Elohim Haed, Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'charo
Amen. Shiva Shavuot Yispar Lav Me'acher Charmei Chakamat Rachel Yiskor Shiva Shavuot Ve'amasita Shavuot L'Adonai Elohecha Misad Nivad Yadcha Asher Titeni Kasher Rechecha Adonai Elohecha V'samata Lifnei Elohecha Tobi Chavitecha Ve'ali Chavivatecha Ve'ali Yasher Misharecha Ve'ager Ve'tomana Asher V'kivecha V'makom Asher Yifar Adonai Elohecha V'shatei Shemot Sham V'zacharta כעבד היית במצרים, ושמרת ועשית את החוקים האלה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan לנו Torah, v'chayei olam l'tavatoteinu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu haTorah.
Amen.
Our reading continues with verse 13 on page 1084.
Avot le'Torah, Sipor Malcha, Yitzchak Meir, Valia Harvey.
Amen. Chag Sukkot yaseh לך שבעת ימים, ואספך מגרנך מקבך, ושמחת בחגך, אתה ובחביתך ובבדיך ובעבדיך והגט ומלמד אשר בשעריך, שבעה ימים לחוג לאדוני אלוהיך, במקום אשר יבחר אדוני, כי יברך לך אדוני אלוהיך בכל תורתך ובמעשה ידיך, והיית אף שמח 3 פעמים בשנה. מתנת ידו דרכם, אדוני אלוהיך אשר נתן לך.
Asher natan לנו Torah, v'chayei olam l'tavatoteinu.
Olenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Yisrael, Yikadash Shemei Rah.
Amen.
Moed Broker Zevion L'Talmute. Yipara, Yishkabah, Ari, Mani, Hasen, Yihala, Shmei Kusha. Elam Kobe Batoshi, Batam.
May be seated. Oh yeah, we're gonna lift this Torah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yamod, Hamafia, Ta'amod, Hagolelet.
The Sefer Torah, Rishon.
The Sefer Torah Harishon.
Our Maftir reading, our second scroll, our second Torah, will be read from the Parshat Pinchas, which, for those of you who are familiar with festival readings, would be able to guess without any kind of prompting. This particular section, it should come as no surprise, relates directly to Shavuot, the agricultural basis of Shavuot, not the revelation that we know of Shavuot today. It discusses the first fruits, it discusses the type of offerings that are there, and it can be found on page 932, verse 26.
Yamod, Yehoshua ben David, Amatir.
Amen. Shiva Kvasim Bnei Shana Uminchatam Sorek Rav Hashem Shlosha Asronim Lavar Echad Shnei Asronim Le'ayir Ha'echad Isaron Nechas Ha'echad Shivat HaKvasim Sihir Izim Echad Lechaper Alechem Mirvad Olam Alamid Mitchato Ta'asu Tmimim Yurachen Niskehen Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Olam Asher natan lanu Torah temet b'chayei olam Ata b'docheinu Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Yamo, Tamatia, Tahamo, Takolet, Christ.
Bezot Torah Asher Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael Avi Adonai Yad Moshe Eitz Chayim Lemachazikima Letom Lecha Meyushar Eitz Chayim Lemachazikima Letom Lecha Meyushar בכל נתיבותיו שלום, דרכי נועם, בכל נתיבותיו שלום. Please be seated. Our Haftorah is found beginning on page 1326. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'alayim mitovim v'ratzav divreihem anemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'torah u'moshevo u'Yisrael amo v'vi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Adonai Beitat Hashem, Mipanav Kol Haaretz, V'ilal Havakuk Anaviyah, Shivyono Adonai, Shamalti Shimasa, Yareti Adonai, Palecha B'kerev Shnayim Pe'yachayehu, B'kerev Shnehem Kodiyah, Birokes Rachei Kiskor Elohai Mitei Manyavo Shadosh Maya Paran Sehela Kisei Shamayim Hodo Udilato Mal Haaretz Roka Kortideh Karnayim Igado Lahovo Vesham Chavyon Uzod Lefanav Yelech Davar Yitzei Reshech Leragav Amar Yamodeh Vayater Goyim, Veipotetsu Harerechad, Shafu Girodonam, Alichodoram, Lo Tachad Aven Raiti, Amalek Chushan, Yezun, Yereot, Eretz Midyan, Baruch, Adonai Eloheinu Olam, Zorkol Horamim, Tzadik Kol Hadorot, Hayalem Omer Yosef, Daver Chayim, Shekol Devarav, Emet V'Tzedek, Ne'eman Atzad Adonai Elohim, B'nei Mavim Dvarecha, Ve'davar Echad Mitvarecha, Kolo Yashuv Reikav, Ki Hamelech Ne'eman B'rachamar Atah, Baruch Atah Adonai, Hayalem Kol Devarav, Al Sodoriation Zagaring Halu Ora Pirele Godo, Ibishet Hashakanish Patalo, Sheloi Benero, the Alamba Barota Paradai, Magi David, Please have a seat. Art Buchwald once said, "The best things in life are not things." Similarly, reporters once asked actress Elizabeth Taylor, after she had lost valuable jewelry in a robbery, whether she cried. Her response says it all. "I don't cry for things that don't cry for me." Our sages tell us that there are two kinds of tears. One is ma'od shel ashan, tears that disappear like smoke. Those are the kinds of tears that we shed when we've seen a sad movie, been frustrated that the car won't start on a cold morning, or when the Celtics lose game 2. If we really think, and if we really put these examples in perspective, we realize that these tears will disappear like smoke. However, there are also ma'od shel pirot, tears that enrich the earth and bear fruit. Tears we shed for those we love. Tears which you may shed today are tears that enrich the earth and bear fruit. 4 times a year, at predetermined dates, we gather in our shul, not just to celebrate our most joyous holidays, but to remember those who are dear to us and mourn the loss of loved ones. On the face of it, this may seem like an odd practice. After all, festivals are intended to be times of joy. The Torah, in fact, commanded us to do so in the reading this morning. The Torah tells us, "Samachta b'chagecha," rejoice in your festivals. And yet we choose these days as an opportunity to reflect on our personal and our communal losses. As we gather this morning, some of us will shed tears even as we mark the final moments of our celebration today. Rabbi Mark Greenspan notes that reciting Yizkor on major Jewish holidays is a little like breaking glass at a wedding ceremony. There's a variety of reasons for this custom. Most common explanation is that the broken glass is a reminder of the destruction of the temple. We're told to remember Jerusalem, remember its loss, even in our moments of greatest joy. At one of the happiest moments in our lives, then we choose to mix our sorrows with our celebrations, to connect the bitter with the sweet. No moment in life is either and fully one or the other. So what's the point of Yizkor? Why choose to introduce an element of sorrow and even mourning into the most joyous of festivals? It's easier to justify reciting Yizkor as part of Yom Kippur, of course, but how do we explain the Yizkor on Pesach, on Sukkot, or today on Shavuot? Aren't these holidays supposed to be a time of unadulterated joy and celebration? But maybe that's the entire point of the Yizkor service. There's no such thing as unadulterated joy in anyone's life. Remember that we're told that the ancient temple had two entrances, one for those celebrating Simcha and one for those in mourning. In our happiest moments, there's often a bit of melancholy. Standing beneath the chuppah with our children, standing beside our children at a Bnei Mitzvah, standing over a newborn at a Brit Milah or a baby naming. We shed tears at the passage of time and the absence of loved ones. We ask ourselves, when did I get older? Or we say, if only mom or dad could have been here. Think again about the holidays in which we recite Yizkor. On Sukkot, we come together to express gratitude for our survival in the desert. In the Yizkor service, we express grateful gratitude for the blessings of relatives and friends whose presence continues to be more real to us than their absence. Passover, about telling our story as a people of faith. At Yizkor, we recall the stories of our loved ones, the loved ones who made us who we are. Chances are, our loved ones' stories contain both darkness and light, sorrow and praise. And Shavuot today is about the legacy of Torah. We pause in Yizkor to think about the lessons and examples that we have learned from our loving parents. Our husbands, our wives, brothers and sisters, children and grandchildren, aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends. We think of temple members who taught us much and gave much to this show. They were our teachers, and they continue to be our teachers even in their absence. There's no one here who doesn't have someone to remember. We've each someone who has taught us a life lesson. Chaim Bialik, the poet laureate of Israel, has a poem that tells the story of his mother. She was widowed early into her marriage, and she worked from dawn to dark every day to support herself and her children. Till midnight, her lamp would never extinguish. It's one of many of the sad lines in the poem. Her body was racked with pain and sadness, but Bialik could hear her lying in bed quietly chanting the Shema. And as she baked challah, tears streamed down her face. As Bialik puts it, and to me, my heart now says, here I am, knowing that into the dough her own eyes' tears were dripping. In each morning's loaves she baked hot for her children, from each piece of dough, from the bread of her weeping. For Bialik, his mother's love comes with tears as well as faith. These are moments of sorrow and of hope. In many shuls, congregants whose parents are both still alive are sent out of the sanctuary while Yizkor is being said. Joseph Jacobson is a member of a Brooklyn temple that followed that practice. In an article, he recalls how after 33 years, he praised the Yizkor service for the first time. His father, a Yiddish journalist. Here's part of what he wrote. My heart shifted to my late father, whom I loved and adored so deeply. My flow of tears found solace in the knowledge that this was a life well lived. My dad was a man who utilized his journalistic wisdom and skills to become a voice for others left behind. He was a man of conviction and truly an original personality. I recall my father's last hours and the dignity with which he departed on his final journey. I wept for my children, who would not have the privilege to know the unique grandfather they have. And so we come to Yizkor, in sorrow and in celebration. We come with the hope that we will not be forgotten, that when the time comes, Someone will recite Yizkor for us. In the meantime, each day is a blessing and an opportunity to live, to learn, and to share our love with others. Each day is an opportunity to rejoice in sorrow and in celebration. We turn to page 333. 330 in our Siddur for the Yizkor service. And now we do rise. Adonai hadavateiku benerosh tashbeku Adonai matzirover baboker yetzitz bechalav le'erev olev yavegish linot yameinu hadaka v'navin levav chachma. Page 331 on the left-hand side. Shiviti Adonai lebeti tamid, ki balemot, lachet samach libi v'yahagel kevodi, af besari shkon haveta, af besari yishkon haveta. We turn now to our individual prayers, beginning on page 335, and we allow time for individual private meditation and prayer. Those of us still engaged in private memory and in private prayer, please feel free to continue to do so. We continue on page 336 with the memory of all, with El Malek. El Malek Rahman, Am Seinu Tahat Tishtina. Ve'anod Yashutarim, Izohar Motehirim, Lenishbat Kolehela Sheskarne Libracha, Shalul Olam Yaled Libruchatam, Amin, Askirim Besefer Avekale Olamim, Utzror, Achem Nishmotehem, Adonai La'atzam, Shalom, Mishkevotehem, V'nomar, Amen. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God lays me down in green pastures, leads me to still waters. renews my life, guides me in the right path, for that is God's way. Though I walk through a valley as dark as death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in full view of my foes. Dishanta, 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 Shemen Roshi. Dishanta, Shemen Roshi. Ko Sirevaya. Veshati bebed Adonai, Veshati bebed Adonai, on page 338, the special mourner's cottage to conclude our Yizkor service together. Yitkadam, Yitkadash, Yeravah, Yamah, Yamliv, Machuzeh, Yechayekom, Yemekom, Yechayekom, Israel, Kavalah, Yisman, Harim, Yibru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rav, Rav, Levav, Leachayah, Yitbarach, Yishavach, Yitzhahar, Yisraman, Yisnaseh, Yitzhahar, Yisnaseh, Yitzhahar, Yisnaseh, the Eila, Go, Birkata, Bashirata, Tushmata, Nekata, Damiran, Deoman, Yibru, Amen. Yehei Shemon, Rahim Shemayah, Lechaim, O Yisrael, Yibru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, Shemona, Huya, Aleinu, Yaakov, Yisrael, Yibru, Amen. We remain standing on page 340. Yeah, hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Ki niskach Shemon Ador, Hodor Haaretz v'shamayim, vayarem gefen le'amo, tilal lechol chasinat, libnei Yisrael afkero. Adonai Tzvaot, umelech hakavod, Serach, uv'yokol yomar. Eitz ha'ayim nilach ha'zikiva, You may be seated and settle in. I have about a 20, maybe 25-minute sermon to deliver. Our concluding prayers begin on page 204. Thank Elohim. Ein Eloheinu, Ein Adonenu, Ein Kevavteinu, Ein Kevavchineinu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Adonenu, Mi Kevavteinu, Mi Kevavchineinu. No Eloheinu, no Eloheinu, You may be seated. This week, we observed your sites of Jean Bender, Bella Cohen, Ruth Weinstein, Edward Levine, Jeanette Faye McDowell, Henry Dixon, Ida Goldstein, Joseph Weinberg, Patricia Alcorn, Rosalind Cooper, Harry Rosengard, Albert Bloom, Barbara Doniger, Samuel Harms, and Adele Rosenthal. All those in mourning, and anyone who's observing a York site, please rise on page 307 as we recite the mourner's cottage together. Yitkada, Yitkada, Shnei Rabba, Yamad, Yidrach, Yimipei, Yamlich, Mapapei, Zayikon, Yumekon, Zayed, Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bisman, Karim, Yidru, Yehei, Shnei Rabba, Yidrach, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitbahar, Yitramam, Yitnasei, Yitadar, Yitaled, Yitalal, Shmit, Zaina, Overpata, Vishirata, Vishpata, Venekmata, Damiran, Yalma, Yimru, Yishtamarama, Minshemaya, Chaim, Alenu, Yalko, Yisrael, Yimru, Amen, Session, we are Session. Elaine, Yalko, Yisrael, Yimru. The only announcement I know about is I look forward to this upcoming Shabbat, Friday night services on Zoom, 6 p.m. Does anyone else have a quick announcement?
We have a meeting on Wednesday. Congregation meeting Wednesday.
There's a meeting on Wednesday.
And then grief group is on Thursday.
Okay, and
Grief group.
I'm sorry, Lorraine. Okay, grief group on Thursday. Yes.
Right.
Bill?
Sunday is Easter
It's Sunday, Sunday.
from 10 to 2 right here. And we'll be singing the transit after singing 3 years. We'll be having a good time as well as performing various mitzvot. And we'll go to see them on Sunday.
Okay. We had 2 Torahs today, and it was a special day associated with Torah. So to end today, hopefully a familiar melody. Al Shosha Devarim, Al Shosha Devarim, Olam Omed, Al Shosha Devarim, Olam Omed, Al Torah, Al Avodah Chasadim, Al Torah. 78. Let's go back to 79. Keep going. Go to 81. Right there, Moshe, Moate Adonai, Elek Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu haolam, borek b'riakafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Elohim melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. A special thank you to our chefs, Chef du jour, and it looks like quite the spread is in the back of our sanctuary here today. So we fill out our bond, and we offer great thanks to those who are associated. I think Michelle had a big part of it, of course, and Jerry, we thank you as well. And Paul for being the cleanup hitter. Thank you for everything.